Captain Paul Watson was a co-founder of the Greenpeace Foundation in 1972 and the founder of Sea Shepherd in 1977. In 2022, he was forced out of Sea Shepherd in a hostile takeover. So, he established the Captain Paul Watson Foundation to carry on the work they've been doing for half a century with the specific strategy of aggressive non-violence, which means aggressive intervention without killing or injuring anyone. They took the name he created and the logos he designed, but they couldn't take away his life's mission. The foundation will carry on. This summer, with their new ship, the John Paul DeJoria, they intend to intervene against the Icelandic slaughter of endangered fin whales. And in 2024, they plan to be in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary to stop the return of Japanese whalers who will be defying the International Court of Justice. They have one ship, but they need two more. Please visit paulwatsonfoundation.org to become a monthly donor. By becoming a monthly donor, you can help grow their Navy and help save our oceans. We don't survive on this planet with dead oceans. If the oceans die, we die. Please visit now www.paulwatsonfoundation.org. If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a night dreamer. The strange news in brief. I'm Guy Ticker. What did the ancient Egyptian pyramids look like when they were built? When the ancient Egyptian pyramids were originally erected, both in Giza and elsewhere, they didn't look sandy brown, as they often do today. Rather, they were covered in a layer of shiny sedimentary rock. There's evidence that the casing stones began being stripped under Tutankhamun's reign, circa 1336 BC to 1327 BC, and this continued until the 12th century AD, a rather long time. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Hey, this is April, the Psychic Housewife of New Jersey. Listen to Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
Broadcasting to you live in his underwear. Sorry. From the studios of Night Dreams Talk Radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson. He's the bomb.
The size of nuclear bombs today has evolved from the 1960s so that they are smaller but more accurate.
Hey, are we talking about weapons or Gary?
Even if the total megatonnage was actually less, the explosive force would be spread out more efficiently across the metropolitan area. So in that case, the actual destruction would be even greater than what I'm about to describe now.
Yeah, we're talking about Gary. On the radio, on the internet, and in worldwide syndication. Get ready for the ride of your life.
The destruction that I'm about to describe is likely an underestimation of what would actually happen. It still gives an adequate sort of approximation of the effects. So here we go.
Here's Gary.
And here I am. And I'll tell you, here it is, Wednesday, the 11th of October. Are you getting ready for Halloween? For the people who can see us on YouTube, you can see I'm all ready for, well, Halloween. I'll tell you that. In the news, there's some more, well, Bigfoot videos going around on TikTok. They're claiming, it looks real. And you can clearly see the guy or the Bigfoot walks like a human, and his, well, I'll tell you what, they got to spend more than $49.95 for a Bigfoot outfit. That's what I tell you. Well, a judge in Alabama, they did an audit of judges, spent $80,000 of the court's money for some new furniture. That's for his house, kitty litter, and some guns. And people wonder where their money goes when they pay the taxes. I tell you, it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. Another asteroid, is going to be flying by between the Earth and the moon. That's kind of close, isn't it? Weather changes. I tell you what, I tell you, the leaves are now dropping on our trees around here. And it should have dropped about a month ago. So there's definitely a change going on. And then also, do you believe cavemen, and after what came from the cavemen, they had a tendency of eating their dead. They were cannibals. That was in the news, Science Journal. So it makes you wonder, maybe that's why we like meat. I don't know. There's still a couple African tribes that actually eat the dead. They feel if they eat the dead, the spirits, that person, inner being, becomes part of them. So I don't know. Well, tonight we got somebody that a lot of you have been emailing us about. When are you going to get Walter Koenig back on? The original Star Trek and the movies that followed. Plus, he was on, remember the Novak show, Dr. Novak? I do. He was on that. He's been on like 40 other TVs and movies. He's written a lot of scripts and all kinds of things. Plus, he has a book out that is really fantastic. Let's bring Walter on. Walter, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm right here.
Have you wrote anything more? Last time we talked, you were thinking about maybe writing another book.
Well, I had promised myself that I wasn't going to discuss that, but there's not a hell of a lot that I can discuss that's happening. My life has become somewhat static, as it does for people who are, reaching their ninth decade. So, yeah, I did write. I wrote a novella, and it's very coincidental that I've just made some progress with getting it evaluated. I finished it. I finished it about a week ago, and spent several days rereading it, and in turn feeling that it is really the most extraordinary piece of art that anybody had ever written, and going to the lower depths on how dreadful it is and how poorly managed and stylized it is, and that it isn't worth anything. So I swing back and forth. I think, to some degree that happens to a lot of writers, or successful writers, when they produce a new product. And so I have made the first steps towards getting some either reinforcement or critique that will convince me to just put it in a drawer and forget about it. So that I should know more around the 8th of November. But it was a great adventure for the most part. Writing it, I had a terrific time. It's about 50,000 words, which makes it a novella as opposed to a novel. And it was an adventure. It was an adventure doing it. There were times when I was surprised at how well I wrote, and other times when I felt that how can I ever show this to anybody? It's so dreadful. So I now, in the next, what's today, the 11th, 19, I have about 27 days to cogitate on what the first response will be. And then I'll know whether or not I should mention it again, or whether I should just do what I did with another novel that I wrote. I just put it in a drawer and let it incubate for 18 years.
Interesting. Because, your last book, we talked about your father and all that stuff and what it was like. And I tell you, it was really, heart warming how you were brought up and what you went through and all that. And, it kind of touched home. We had on Friday's show, we had a former KGB spy on our show, or last week we did, I should say. And he grew up in East Germany 3 years after World War II. And, he had a lot of things similar to like how you, grew up. And it was interesting.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
What does he do now?
He wrote a great book about, being a sleeper spy. He was actually in the United States, and his function was to send back to Moscow news articles from the newspapers and magazines of what American people were thinking, they were buying, what they were doing. And that was his function.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they could kind of get an idea what the American people really, were thinking of and all that. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Good.
And, like with you wrote also a lot of screenplays and all that stuff. So, what's it like to write a screenplay? I mean, do you write it or when you wrote them, did you write them and then try to market them, or did they contact you and say, hey, we need you to do it? How's that work?
Well, I think it's probably different for everybody. I'm not sure there's any one way to go about merchandising something that you've written. I started writing when after Star Trek television series was canceled. I woke up in the morning and I had nothing to do. I had just absolutely nothing. I had a little baby at home, cried a lot, and I had no purpose to my day. And that went on for weeks, until finally I decided that I just couldn't continue on that basis, and I just started writing a novel. I didn't outline it. I didn't do anything you're supposed to do involving that kind of work. And I had never taken a writing class. I graduated from college without ever having taken an English class. Graduated at UCLA, that notwithstanding. But it just kept me absorbed and kept me it let me operate in another world and put all my concentration and focus there, and not worry about myself so much. I wasn't as concerned as I might otherwise have been about my life and what was going to happen, and would I ever work again? Every actor goes through that at some point, I suppose.
So I got to ask you a question, Walter. When Star Trek got canceled, I also was reading they had a chance to bring it back, but a person wanted so much money they said no, we're not going to bring it back. But I mean, after it got canceled, how did it hit you?
Well, I knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming. The word had been, from the beginning. Well, I wasn't even involved in the first year, as you know, but during the second year, there was a lot of talk about the show and the support, the energy that the fans brought to their support, and how much they enjoyed the show. And I became aware of it before we started shooting the second season, which was my first season. I even went to a couple of strikes where the fans were striking NBC, and I watched them before any of them ever knew that I was going to be involved in the show, or who I was or would be. In any case, so we went through the second year, and it was good fun for me. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed enjoy the opportunity to go to work every week, not every day, but every week, because I wasn't under contract and I was hired on a show by show basis. And occasionally they gave me something to do that was worthwhile. I mean, a lot of the time I just said "aye, aye, sir," and warp factor 3. But other than but those occasions notwithstanding, there were other opportunities where I got a moment. I got a little bit of a scene with somebody, and I just felt that at last I was on a somewhat consistent basis. I was doing the work that I was meant to do.
Well, and
of course, I really appreciated the fact that we were a multinational, multiracial, multi-ethnic company. I've always said that if I had to be identified with one particular show for the rest of my life, and at this point it isn't hyperbole to say that it is the rest of my life, it might as well be Star Trek, because I believe in the morality of the show, the ethics of the show, the philosophy that we're all one people, and no matter what our backgrounds and our belief systems are, we are all to be represented and respected for who we are. And since that's what Star Trek promoted, it was something that I felt comfortable with being identified with for all these many years.
Well, too, I was friends with Robert Culp, who played I Spy and, the American Greatest Hero and numerous, movies and all that stuff. And, him and Bill Crosby, were the first to bring, a black actor in a major role on a TV show as an equal. And that really changed TV a lot. And then Star Trek, we had the same thing. The first kiss, interracial. And a lot of things that Star Trek did was, because the Vietnam War was going on, they were trying to make a point, subtle, about humanity. And that's what the show did. And, when I was young, I didn't catch it. I caught it when I was older. I caught really what the show meant.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if we could step back far enough back and get a view of civilization that existed before our particular entry, before our particular involvement, we would see just how the world evolves, and there are cycles, just as we felt pride and commitment and passion about democracy, particularly when we were fighting, the forces that were opposed to it, and what a great country this was. We're at a point where we've gone back. Our perspective is such that we can see, if we choose to let it happen, we can see the coming of another period of totalitarianism, of dictatorship, of autocracy, of a world that is less than welcoming to all people, and these are cycles that we seem to go through. And as I'm now deep into my 80s, as I look at what might occur, it's very distressing, and it just underscores the fact that we have a limited cultural potential. We can go so far, and then we fall back, and we have to return to an earlier time and learn how to be civilized human beings and learn how to be good people all over again. And it's happened in our past. It's happened with our racial past, and it's happened with even before that with the genocide of Native Americans. And I'm concerned about what the future is going to hold. But I'm not here to politicize. I'm just saying that.
I'm scared, to be honest with you, Walter. Just to touch base on it, then we'll get back on Star Trek. The news. When I was young, I was so worried that we were going to have a nuclear war, and it was in the papers all the time. And we went so many years after that when the wall came down and things happened. We didn't hear about it. Now, I was talking back about 8 months ago to one of my grandsons. And one of the questions, he said, "Grandpa, am I going to die? Am I going to burst in flames when it happens?" And this is coming from a kid that was like 8 years old. That's what's on the mind. It's in the news again, and it plays it up. Society seems to go, like you mentioned, to a certain level, and then it goes back. And you wonder how things could happen the way it did. Stalin, Hitler, all these countries, they go to a certain point, they start making an improvement, and they slide right back.
Yep. Well, human nature is not infinite. It can go just so far. We can expand in one direction, and we can retreat in another. We can, but it has its limits, and human beings have their limits, and we have to be always on the lookout for the things, for the temptations, and for the behavior that can draw us back to a more atavistic time. A time when we were more involved with, less involved in human rights and more involved with self-possession and greed and all the things that negatively drive us. So that's Darwin. Was he got it right? We are the survival of the fittest until we stop being the fittest, and we start becoming a negative influence on the world. I don't know. I'm sort of babbling.
Well, that's true. But too, you grew up where you grew up, and you went through what you went through. So you have a lot of you that a lot of people don't, understand and probably couldn't comprehend now. It was hard growing up in your, at your time. It's like it was hard with me. I had my worried about, here I was in high school or junior high school, the Vietnam thing was going, and I was so terrified about going to Vietnam, and then, that there I was. But, again, I mean, it's just one after another, and it doesn't seem to stop. That's the scary part. All around, I would think that's what I liked about Star Trek. Seriously, people could get, well, occasionally, except for the Cleons, right? And a few others, everybody was trying to get along with each other. They didn't want to corrupt another planet, another race of humanoids.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I do a fair amount of personal appearances, still do, so long after the fact. I think we finished our Star Trek feature films in the late 80s or very early 90s. So I've been doing personal appearances for a long time, and I've met all kinds of people. It is not simply the people who are engineers or who are science-oriented, or people who are, humanitarian. I meet people of all walks, and I find it very elucidating to talk with them. I make a point of trying to talk with people when I do conventions, not just sign autographs, but have many conversations, and we draw from a variety of sources, population sources, and I find that inspiring and stimulating, and I'm very pleased to see that. And the other, on the other side of that, is the fact that because the Star Trek franchise, just in general, has to appeal to a broader canvas of people, a broader population. We are a much more action, adventure oriented storytellers than we were when we did the series. When we did the series, we were limited by special effects. The fact that they weren't as sophisticated as they've become, and so consequently, we had to rely on story. We had to rely on relationships between people, and the conflicts that it's ensued as a consequence of people's of different philosophies having to interact. And so the people who watched us were doing a lot of thinking. They were watching our stories, watching and listening to the writing that had brought those stories forward, and learning about the conflicts, philosophical conflicts that existed, and how they might be resolved. But now that we are competing on such a broader scale and have to do movies that cost millions of dollars to appeal to audiences, we have introduced a lot of pyrotechnics and a lot of visual and auditory stimulation.
But Walter, it's not the same. Now, we need to take a real quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Walter Koenig, and we're going to, talk about this and what it was like doing some of the things that was going on the Enterprise. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. We'll be right back. So don't go anywhere, please.
To your heart, I have been lost for all of this time. Take me to your heart, where it is safe. You know I will not let you down. Take me to your heart. I need to calm down. To your heart, I need to tell you how much I have missed you so. I feel cold. I need to get warm, baby.
The strange news in brief. I'm Guy Ticker. London Museum finally honors last wishes of the Irish giant. Byrne is believed to have been born in 1761 under the name Charles O'Brien. The museum decided at the beginning of 2023 to honor his previously ignored final wishes and remove his sizable skeleton from public display. I'm Guy Ticker. The strange news is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Are you into the paranormal? Then you have found the right place. Night Dreams covers the topics you want to hear. And Gary always has a great guest to take you for a real ride in talk radio. So, buckle up and let's go for that ride with Gary.
And we are back with CHECKOV, Walter Koenig, on Night Dreams Talk
Koenig,
Radio.
by the way.
Koenig, I'm so sorry. I'm getting old. I found my keys this morning after 2 days trying to find my car keys. You know where they were?
In your pocket.
No, they were in the icebox. The refrigerator.
Good for you. I don't think I've done that yet, but I've done things equally as ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, Gary. I just wanted to finish my thought here.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then we can expound on anything else that you have in mind. So my point is that we have these movies now that are made to appeal to a wider audience, to an audience that is looking for a visceral response. That want to be excited visually and in every other way. So in achieving that, there is a certain I don't know if intellectually we drop backward, but we're not as exposed to ideas and concepts to the same degree we were when we were making the television show. Then we generally had something to say. Our plots had something to say that was very significant in terms of human behavior, in terms of the world. Now, we still have wonderful actors portraying the characters of Star Trek, and there's action and there's conflict, but we also have to address the idea that it's got to appeal to a far larger audience, and that means we are not as involved as I think we were when we did the TV series in addressing the human condition. Okay, I'm done.
No, you're absolutely 100% right. I mean, again, Star Trek or even shows like Dr. Novak, okay? Any of the old shows, my friend Robert Culp, I Spy, for example, they all had something to do to address either the racial, the war, humanity. They always had something. Nowadays, I hate to say it, I talked to Mark Cushman about a year ago about this. It's now all blood and guts because they can digitize, fake everything, right? I remember the shows like, where people got shot, but they never had any bullet holes or blood, They fell down and they, sometimes put their hand in the wrong spot. But that you had to use your imagination. Now you're seeing people getting their heads chopped off like these zombie movies and or any of the other type movies, blood's flying everywhere. That kind of alarms me because it's not like I Love Lucy, the Donna Reed show, Father Knows Best, and Star Trek and all the other stuff which actually you didn't see stuff like that. You didn't see blood and guts everywhere. They had a message. What is wrong with society?
Well, I think when President Obama was elected, I felt, my God, we have come such a long way. What an extraordinary thing it was to have an African American as president of the United States and leading our country. I was so proud and euphoric that such a change had occurred and how it had transformed our society. But, as I said before, we can only go so far as human beings. And we haven't evolved in a constitutional way. We haven't evolved to the point where having achieved this kind of humanitarianism we will never look back. That it's here to stay, because that's not the case. We are still animals, and we are still, have our limitations, and our limitations at some juncture demand that we take a step back. That Obama was great for our country, except for the people that didn't think so, and their antagonism and restlessness and their feelings, because we're human beings with limits. Those people get another chance. They get another chance, just as the people who are far more progressive and more, to beat a word to death, humanitarian. They will get another chance down the line
if we're here. If we still have a planet.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that's also a possibility. It's also a possibility.
It's scary. It
is scary, and we can only just keep trying. I'm not saying this with any dramatic effect in mind, but I'm not going to be here that much longer, and I just hope that we're still a democracy when I leave this mortal coil, that we still have the kind of government and human relationship that makes us proud, that speaks well of who we are.
We can only hope, Walter. We can only help on that one, because it's getting scary. I got to ask you some questions that people emailed me about. Okay, one is on the bridge of the Enterprise, when the doors would automatically open up when you were going to go through it. Was it two people opening and closing it behind the wall?
Absolutely. That's a perfect example of the technology and the primitive technology that we use, as opposed to what they use now. Now, I don't know how they do it, but it's not two guys standing there with ropes in their hands pulling on the doors, as it was when we did the show. I mean, that was always the case. And, the outtakes, I don't think that anybody ever gets to see those anymore, but we had, a succession of outtakes of people waiting for the doors to open and walking into them when the human beings behind the scenes failed to pull them open with a cord.
Did Shatner ever run into it?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah.
Good. I got one thing I'm going to say. I normally don't say nothing bad about Shatner, but 5 years ago, I was corresponding with him, and he was willing to come on my show, but not over the, like we're doing it. He wanted me to fly him, put him up in a hotel, get a limo, and a nice budget, and he wanted this amount of money, which is my whole year, budget for the show. Didn't happen.
Okay, all of the supporting actors had some problem with Bill, and there's no question about it. But you have to take into consideration the time. 1960s. It wasn't just we were a cast, C-A-S-T. We were also a C-A-S-T-E. It was a different time. They were the stars of the show who had running roles, and there were others who had running roles, but who were not the stars. And the way it was set up is that they were considered subordinate. They were not treated they weren't treated badly, but they weren't treated with the same sense of deification that the two or three actors who carried the show were. So that's that's the environment in which Bill Shatner operated, and nobody told him not to act that way. There are people who just automatically just feel, good about other people and are supportive. DeForest was always a warm, congenial guy, and he was one of the stars. But it's understandable where Bill was coming from, and that he carried it over. I mean, look at the kind of reaction he's gotten over the years. I mean, not only has he done other television series and films, but when he goes out on the road and speaks at a convention, people adore him. They adore him. They just reinforce the sense of his merit.
But they don't know the real him. I hate to say that. He's an actor, because I met him one time personally. I used to be into riding Harley motorcycles, and he was on a trike with his wife at the time, promoting this motorcycle trike. And he was at this one place eating, and I went in there, and, I left my, motorcycle jacket on my bike and helmet. I walk in there, and I said hi to him, and he just I don't talk to people. Okay. And then he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, do you ride a motorcycle?" "Yeah, I ride a Harley." Oh, all of a sudden I was a nice person.
Yeah. Well, look, he's not my friend. He's not my buddy, but I do understand the circumstances that formed him. He might have been this way at 15. I don't know, but there was a lot. The environment was such that he was not criticized or made to feel that his behavior was untoward. Certainly, when you have that kind of adulation and that kind of success, then it just becomes a part of you. Now, I'm not defending him because I say there are people like DeForest, who was also extremely popular, who was not like that. He was wonderful with everybody, but it's something that I understand, and I don't think it should be generalized to what he had to contribute as an actor, because I think that without Bill Shatner as Captain Kirk, I don't think the show would have had this extraordinary success. I know that Leonard's performance as Mr. Spock was quite extraordinary and surprising, and didn't expect the audience to defend him and become so supportive of what he did. But still, if the good-looking leading man who is a good actor isn't part of your company, and you're doing this kind of show, it might never have gone this far without Bill Shatner. As I say, we're not friends. I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to understand. In my old age, I'm just trying to understand him better, and give credit where credit is due.
Oh, he's good. He's a good actor. He's a good voiceover, person. You couldn't ask for the nicer. Leonard Nimoy, I met him back around 1999, and because my other passion is photography. He bought a picture from me, but I spent probably a good hour. We were just talking about everything from photography to poultry and all this stuff. Guy was really warm and real.
Okay, so can we be done with that?
Okay, we're all done with that. Now, you also had a scene in Star Trek, pretty much where, you went into like this old ghost town kind of Western setup. It was kind of like, kind of strange, mystic type of thing. That was like one of your bigger parts in it, wasn't it?
Yeah, Spectre of the Gun. When people ask me what's my favorite episode, well, my favorite episode that I was in was Spectre of the Gun. City on the Edge of Forever was still my favorite Star Trek episode of all time. But Spectre of the Gun was great fun. I got to go down to the planet. I got the girl. I got killed. I mean, all these things that made me feel like I was contributing more to the show and doing something that maybe deserved a little approbation, as opposed to sitting at the console and just saying, 2 or 3 words in an expository manner, not ever volunteering my feelings about things. So that was never asked of me. It was just asked of me to help explain what was going on in the plot. But Spectre of the Gun, I had all that stuff. And in fact, it's a very ironic and curious circumstance, because as much fun as I had shooting that, there was a fallacy in the logic that was never really addressed, and that had to do with the fact that the story was based on the premise that we were living in an illusion, that it wasn't real, and that it was only real to us so long as we didn't know that it was an illusion. And once we found out that it was just that it wasn't reality, then nothing that occurred could materially affect anything else. The problem is we didn't learn that until after Chekov was shot, killed. So Chekov shouldn't have been able to be back on the bridge at the end of the episode. And I brought that up to the editor, and I don't know why I did. That was pretty masochistic of me. I mean, except that we already had shot it, and I figured, I knew it before we shot it, but I just decided I wasn't going to tell anybody. But I did afterwards, and his response was, yeah, we figured that out, but we said, screw it. So, and then their way of fixing it, and I just found this out within the last week, somebody told me, is that they had somebody say the only thing real for Chekov in that scene was the girl. Now that's really a very weak argument. I didn't really think I got shot. Give me a break. Chekov really thought he got shot, and when he died, he really died. So it didn't really hold up. The logic didn't hold up. But I wasn't going to argue about it. What the hell, I wanted to be on the show. So yeah, Spectre of the Gun was a lot of fun to do. I loved the fact that we took a circumstance. We made a silk purse out of a cow's ear because we didn't have the money to do the show as realistically as I think it was meant to be initially.
But you know what, though, Walter, the way they did it, okay, because it was like, and it kind of, when you looked at the whole set, the buildings, the horses, or whatever you rode, the whole everything, it was kind of like, like a dream state. And a lot of people didn't catch that. But if it would have been like with real buildings that, like Gunsmoke type of thing, I don't think it would have had the impact.
Oh, no. No, that's what was so much fun about it. That we took a situation that was challenging and made a successful. I say we. I had very little to do with it other than perform. But that's what Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry and everybody was able to do with that episode, and I was proud to be part of it. And I think that it was kind of ingenious the way it all worked out.
And then the movies and stuff, didn't you become a captain of a ship in one of the movies?
I don't know, Gary. The truth of the matter is that I held very little regard for what rank I had, unless it actually propelled my performance. You could have put me, you could have broke me to an instant, threw me in a cell, and given me a 7-minute monologue, and I would have been in heaven. You know, I didn't need to be a lieutenant or a commander or a captain. I just wanted the role to be worthwhile.
Interesting. And going back to in Dr. was it Novak?
No, it was Mr. Novak.
Mr. Novak. That too. I mean, you know, again, that just tells me when you look back how things have changed in TV. I mean, it was, you know, so kind of where it worked on your emotions, which nowadays we just, like we were talking about, you don't have emotions like it. You know, you're brought into it. I grew up, you know, Walter, we didn't have a TV when I was young. And then when my dad got the first TV, it was a round picture tube. And all the relatives would come on Friday night and Saturday night where you'd watch movies or TV shows. I mean, you know, and it's come a long ways. And maybe it's because I'm old, but, you know, I still like watching reruns of Star Trek, Leave It to Beaver. You know, we had the late Tony Dow on here. And he was so rich and, you know, some of the stuff that he was involved with. It's just, I don't like how things are going. I'm sorry.
Okay, but you know, there's room for everybody. I did an episode of I Spy, by the way, and I got along with Culp and Cosby. They made it very difficult for the other young man in the show, who had evidently had said that he could he had certain skills which he didn't really have. And the show got a little, got into trouble because he couldn't exercise those skills. He just didn't have them. So that they weren't great to him. They were much nicer to me. But anyway, yeah. But you know, I don't watch very much of anything anymore. You know, I have a very nice couple living near me who write and direct horror movies, and I thoroughly enjoy being in their company. But I don't really like horror movies, not because they're gross or something. I just don't think they're very well done for the most part. They can make me uncomfortable without making me feel stimulated, without making me feel like I'm on an adventure. And so I don't like, and they're huge. Horror movies are you know, very, very popular with the overall population.
Yeah,
So,
because it's too much.
I think there's room for everything, and I don't think we've totally abandoned the idea of good theater and good film. I think they're still out there, and they are made, maybe not with the frequency that we remember. But then I've seen a lot of old movies that I thought, in retrospect, were pretty bad. So
yeah,
you know.
But you know, what was your favorite movie or TV show episode you were in that you really, it was like the number one to you?
Well, I don't know. You know, I did an Alfred Hitchcock hour where I played the bad gang leader and a fairly dimensional character, kind of a latent homosexual, tough guy. I had 3 subordinates who all went on to do television series of their own. Tony Masanti and Zalman King and Mark Slade. They all went on to do their own TV series. So it was a quality cast, and I played opposite James Caan, who I'd gone to drama school with, Neighborhood Playhouse. So that was great fun, and that sort of stands out. When I see it, I don't think it's nearly as good as I remembered it initially, but it was still a fun job for me. It was a meaty role, and I and I think I acquitted myself with, if not distinction, at least with respect.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the ones I think of.
I remember that one. Now, our time, time went by so fast, Walter, and I really enjoyed having you on. Can you tell the people the book that you wrote? I think it has a lot of meaning, and where they can find it.
You're talking about the autobiography?
Yes.
Well, the first volume was called Warp Factors, a Neurotic's Guide to the Universe. And then about 1997, I think. No. It was much later. It was about 8 years ago or 7 years ago. I was asked to do a sequel. What's transpired in my life for the last 20 years. And that's called Beaming Up and Getting Off, which is a title that I tried to lobby for each of the books that I wrote, and finally got somebody who dared to let me use that title. And that incorporates the first book as well as the last 20 years. So that's current, relatively current, and is out there, Beaming Up and Getting Off. And it has all my Star Trek life, and the life before that, and the life after that. So that's something that I might recommend to people.
Very good book, too, by the way. Have you talked to Mark Cushman at all lately, by any chance?
I saw Mark about 4 days ago.
Yeah, next time you see him, say hi to him. Yeah, I got to get him back on.
This was kind of a going away thing. He's moving to, I think it's Connecticut. Maybe not. But he's moving. Oh, no, he's Tennessee. He's moving to Tennessee, and by now he's gone. So I don't expect to see him very much, certainly in the immediate future.
Yeah.
But I will remember that, and I will, when I do, if I'm still around, I will certainly proffer your salutation.
You'll be around as long as William Shatner's around. That'll be another 20 years. You know that.
Now, George is going to outlive us all. George is going to live to 100. His mother lived to 100, so he's going to live to 100.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to live to 100. But again, we take each day as it comes and all that. Walter, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've gone through a lot, and I just want to thank you. You have a lot of fans. You've been on the show 3 or 4 times in the past, and people love you. You have a huge fan base. When I mention your name, everybody just perks up. Again, I get a lot of emails. When are you going to bring Walter back on?
Well, that's very nice. Thank you. I appreciated it.
Okay, my friend. Well, I want you to have a good weekend that's coming up. By the way, how's the weather where you're at? I'm up here on the West Coast in a place called Gig Harbor, Washington. Up to last week, we still had summer. Now we're into winter. It's weird weather. Yeah,
well, it's windy. It's quite windy in LA. And the temperature is down around 70 to 60s. But if you live in Southern California, you never know what's going to transpire. I mean, it could bounce back up to 90 in the next couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, my daughter moved to Hemet, California. And, and I, a couple of times I rode my motorcycle to go see her and visit with her. And I don't know. I looked at her and I said, "Where's the grass?" And, "Oh, we don't have any grass."
That's not true.
Well, we're in Hemet. She said that this is going back 4 years ago, the last time I rode my bike there. She said that they can't afford to use the water because they hit you with fines.
Yeah. Well, okay. Anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you, sir. And I hope I hope that I didn't say. I hope I said something that people haven't heard before. I don't know that I did, but I hope I did.
You did a lot from your heart, and that was nice of you. And you really hit home with what you were saying. My friend, you take care, live long and prosperous, will you?
Thank you. You too, sir.
Okay, you take care.
Bye.
Bye. Well, tomorrow we got a great show. We got the time-traveling lawyer on, who actually ran for U.S. president back a few years ago. And we're going to be talking about time travel. And then, Friday, we have a great show. We have Professor, Stephen Starr, and he's going to be talking about nuclear winter, nuclear whatever, what happens if we, got hit with and our grid system goes down. So that is going to be really interesting. Again, I want to thank Walter for coming on the show. I'll tell you what, a lot of people, some people love William Shatner. Some people like the Doc. Some like the, Scotty. A lot of people liked, Chekov. And you'd be surprised how many people try to imitate that Russian accent, that Chekov did on the show. Well, till tomorrow, everybody, I want to thank you for being on YouTube and on Apple, iHeart, everywhere, Amazon, and on the radio stations they carry us. It's I really am appreciative of you. You have made the show what it is. Well, till we catch you tomorrow night, stay out of trouble. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And if you do, say the devil made you do it.